Welcome, everyone, to our February 10th, 2026 Redevelopment Agency and City Council meeting. I think this is actually just a redevelopment agency meeting, so let the record reflect that all board members are present. We'd like you to take a minute and silence your cell phone if you've got one. And we're going to have our Pledge of Allegiance. Vice Chair Graff will lead us in that.
Please rise and join me if you're able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. If you would now please join us for a moment of silence. Thank you. Next item is acknowledgements. Are there any acknowledgements that anyone would like to give today? All right. The next item is minutes for approval. Special meeting of November 18th, 2025. Board Member Myers.
Chair, I have read the minutes of November 18th, 2025, the RDA meeting, and found them to be accurate, and I will make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Board Member Myers, seconded by Vice Chair Graff. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, they will stand approved. We have the reports from administration, and we have David here to get us started. So welcome. This is about the fiscal year 2024-2025 annual report.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Good to be with you again this evening. I just wanted to stand for a few moments and kind of kick this off. As I mentioned last week, the Ogden Redevelopment Authority has been around since 1969, and over the decades we've been able to accomplish some really awesome activities. I think it was originally set up to, I've been reading a little bit about it, but it was originally set up to address deteriorating conditions at that time in Ogden City, particularly in the downtown area and the inner city neighborhoods. And so as we focused on redevelopment, economic development, and housing development, we've accomplished some awesome things over the years. And so tonight we're just going to talk about what's been going on over the last year and a little bit about what's ahead. And we've asked our new economic development director, Eric Gibson, to walk us through the presentation tonight. And I just want to brag a little bit about Eric, okay? And I knew he wouldn't say these things, so that's why I asked to speak a little bit. But Eric just joined us in December, already having a huge impact on our organization. But he joined us in December after about a decade with Better City, the Better City organization, and that's if you think of like a city business consulting agency that goes out and helps cities across the country with any and all types of development activities. And so, most recently, he was serving as vice president of that organization, and where he led multi-stakeholder projects for cities and counties and regional development authorities across the country. So he brings with him a lot of experience in partnership building, data-driven strategies. I think you'll see a glimpse of some of that tonight, and including really complex private and public redevelopment projects, performance dashboards. We'll talk a little bit more about that tonight as well. And he's also been successful in securing more than $5 million in state and federal grants for the communities that he represented as well. So He's also done a lot of work locally in Utah, including doing demand needs forecast analysis for the city of Layton, right down the road, last year, and also the Wasatch Front Regional Council's Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy a few years back. Eric, here's also something else that I think is pretty cool. Eric was nominated just last year, and recently you'll be seeing more about this in the media, but will be part of Utah Business 40, which is a business organization in the state representing 40 awardees under 40, the age of 40 under 40, something that I'm way past that point. So I couldn't even come close to qualifying. So, but anyway, so we're proud of Eric for that as well. But, and just a little bit of his educational background is pretty unique as well. He holds an MS, a Master of Science in Economics from Purdue University's Daniel School of Business, and bachelor's degrees in International Business and Economics, as well as English and literature from Weber State University, so local graduate as well. And so he's also a licensed real estate agent, which doesn't mean he's selling real estate on the side. It means that he can also support our work with property and development contracts. So anyway, I think that's probably enough, but I'll let Eric go ahead and we'll introduce or bring him up to the podium here and let him get going on the report for this year. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Welcome to the city, and welcome, Eric.
Thank you. I told our comm team about the 40 under 40 just because I wasn't sure if that's, if I'm representing the city, I just need to let them know. And the response was, well, congratulations first on the award, but second for being under 40. So I do have a clicker here. Okay. One other thing I wanted to mention is just that I have 3 little kids, and that's really the reason why I love doing what I do, is because I get to provide a good life for them. And so thank you, all of you, for representing the city and for helping the city be strong, because it helps me provide, helps me give a good place and quality of life for them. So thank you very much for that. So the intent of today's meeting is to go over the Redevelopment Agency's annual report. And one thing to start off with, especially because we have some newer council members today, is to really talk through some of the philosophical ideation behind the agency, what it does, why it does what it does, how that works, how that plays with the public sphere. And so I wanted to run through our mission here, which is really critical. And so I'm going to read it word for word because it's important. And because we are currently in the process of updating this. And so that's one thing you'll see on our last slide, is that we're going to be doing that very soon. But the agency exists to improve the lives of Ogden residents by strengthening the city's tax base and reducing long-term tax pressure on citizens. By strategically reinvesting in underutilized properties and leveraging Ogden's historic, cultural, recreational, and natural assets, the agency promotes transformative redevelopment that supports a vibrant community, sustainable city finances, and a more affordable future for those who live and work in Ogden. So to summarize that, the intent behind this is to work with the private sector to create value and to generate new sources of income that otherwise might not have existed. That's the intent of this. And by doing that, it allows us to improve the quality of life and the plethora of choices that citizens can enjoy because of those investments. These are the values that are driving the agency, and there's 7 here, and we're going to quickly just walk through each of those. The first one is real estate and land use. The intent behind this is to be aware that Ogden is becoming a city that is starting to reach its natural growth boundary. We can do some annexation, but land is becoming a constrained resource. And so we need to start being very wise and prudent about how to utilize those resources. And so we want to make sure that the RDA is empowered to be able to provide that source of funding and support to make sure that the projects that are being done are ones that are going to pay off for the city and generate additional tax increment and revenue that otherwise might not happen or couldn't happen. And we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit more. But this is one of the main drivers, is to be able to have a play in the real estate and land that the city has and that the city contains within its boundaries, and to have a say at the table of what can and can't happen, and to work with developers and with the private sector and the public sector to try to make sure that we have really great places for people and really great investments and products that are coming to the market. The next one is economic growth and opportunity. One of the intents is to not have to raise taxes for people and to be able to provide services. And in order to do that, we need to be able to be generating revenues. And one of the main sources of revenues for a city is through property taxes and through sales taxes. And so by playing in this field, we're able to generate new businesses, generate jobs, provide housing, and be able to provide quality of life for people. And when you do that, then you have economic growth and prosperity, because people want to be in Ogden, they want to stay in Ogden, they want to invest in Ogden, they want to run their business out of Ogden. And so it creates a natural, positive flywheel that we want to generate through these investments. Next is housing. There is a portion of the RDA funds that are set aside, and this is under State Statute 17C, that dedicate a portion of funds for housing. And this money is being utilized through our community development division to invest in homes, to invest in infrastructure, to provide neighborhood amenities that people don't have, especially on some of the older streets in Ogden, be able to do sidewalks and be able to do improvements there, lighting, those kind of things, and then provide housing, and especially affordable housing for those with lower incomes and those with no means. Next is historic and cultural assets. This is the Forest Service building, which we are currently working with the developer to redevelop and to transform and to, most importantly, preserve the building, right? Ogden is really, really cool and unique in that it's a Western city, and most Western cities are like 1950s and newer, right? But Ogden is much older than that. And so it's so great to be able to have these amazing old buildings, but you need resources in order to make the projects pencil, because a lot of times they were built using old materials. I was speaking with Mindy in our department, and she was looking at how someone was ordering all of these products for the old city hall, and it was like, we need to use a bunch of lead-based paint and lead-based, everything, coverings and everything. So, development has changed, standards have changed, health codes have changed. And so sometimes you get in these old buildings and there's a lot of issues. One, because of deterioration, but two, because of the materials that were used. And for a developer to be able to maintain that property and to bring it up to code is a huge investment. And so sometimes there's a big financing gap, and that's where we can go in and support those efforts to maintain those buildings, make sure that they remain usable, remain functional, remain safe, and that they don't just sit there and languish and people just see them deteriorate and fall apart, which is what nobody wants to see in a city when it has so many amazing historical assets. Next is transportation and mobility. I think one of the key projects here is going to be Union Station, which we're envisioning as a transportation hub where we're bringing the regional trails, the bus system, the train, a connection to the airport, all of that together in one place. But again, that's a huge investment. However, when you invest in housing in what's called transit-oriented development, where you develop in density near transportation nodes, then that is actually really great because it allows you to provide housing right next to transportation. And usually the big reason that people don't take the bus is, one, they have to walk pretty far to get there, and two, that the schedules are lousy, right? And so if you're able to make it where you solve for that first issue of they live close to that bus system, they live close to that train station, then it's much easier for them to take the train, to take the bus. And then if they're not driving a car, it takes congestion off of your streets. And it makes it where you can have people here without needing to spend so much in road infrastructure and to spend so much time in traffic. Next is parks and open space. When we work with developers and we work with them to develop some really great public spaces as part of those development projects and utilize the money that we have in participation and demand that as part of the development, then it makes sure that those development projects are not just row after row of apartment units or commercial units, that there's also public amenities that are being built into there. One thing that I learned when I was working with the city of Layton was, yeah, I don't really want a new housing development. However, if you guys can get me a grocery store, if you guys can get me a park or a place to sit in a plaza or to explore with my grandchildren, then it means something to me. And so that's what we're trying to do with the redevelopment agency, is to make sure that we have a seat at the table and that we are talking about the needs of the constituents and of the public in those places and in those projects. And finally is access to services and opportunity. And this ties closely with the economic growth and opportunity that I was talking about, but that's really making sure that you are building, again, in those neighborhoods and areas, and making sure that there are amenities and access to transportation, to healthcare, and everything like that. And the RDA allows you to do that in your current built environment rather than needing to build a neighborhood all the way out in a greenfield area and ruin your public space and ruin your undeveloped land that you might need to use later in the future, or that you might want to enjoy as a public aspect, right? So how do we do this as a redevelopment agency? What tools are used? The biggest one is tax increment financing. And there's going to be a chart that I'll show in just a second. But essentially what you're doing is you're reinvesting new value that's created when a development happens, and you're able to push that money back into a project. So the city will hold it and capture those values over time and return those back, either in bond payments or working with the developer. And so what it can do is help you fund infrastructure, site improvements, environmental remediation, those kind of things that might make a project not pencil on its own, with the assistance of the value that is created from the project. And so what TIF is not, what tax increment financing is not, is a new tax on any of the properties or parcels that are included in a project area. So you're essentially freezing the project area at a certain year, and any new increment that is generated, any new value in those property values or investments, is what you're using to fund those participation. But they are still paying the same property tax that they would have. Now they're just putting it toward the RDA budget rather than toward the participating entities that normally would capture that tax. So there is no new tax that's being created. There's also not a diversion of existing taxes. So you aren't pulling any value out of the property that existed before the RDA, before the redevelopment area was created. And so all of the participating agencies, the fire district, the school district, the city or the county, they aren't losing out on taxes that already existed. It's only the new value that's generated that year that is really at play. And finally, it's not a subsidy for any kind of developers or private participants. The intent behind it is to use those monies for the best of the public interest, and to make sure that you are filling gaps and making sure that there's good returns on those investments. And so we are very careful, and there is the checklist when we are working with any developers or potential projects of that but-for clause, an idea of what would happen if we didn't participate, and how do we make sure that we're actually spending that public money wisely and appropriately. So to give you a model of how this works, I'll start off with that blue bar on the bottom. That's your existing baseline property tax value. So let's say you have a collection of 9 parcels. They're valued at, I don't know, $2 million. You'll maintain that $2 million. And a lot of the entities over time have reduced it, where instead of capturing 100% of the new increment, you're maybe capturing 80 or 85%. And so you'll notice that that blue line is going up just a little bit in this chart here, because we do want to make sure that things don't become unsustainable for some of those entities. For example, the school district, if you have a lot of new residential units, they have to carry that burden of those new students. And so that's why more modern tax increment is to reduce that share slightly in many cases, to make sure that that burden is offset slightly. The teal color, the TIF increment is labeled there. That's the new value that's generated. So that's when you build a large housing unit, or you build a mixed-use commercial center, those kind of things. That's going to significantly increase those property values. And so that's the money that can be utilized within the RDA. So this is just a quick summary of all that, but it's essentially just to bring back that main point, is that this is looking at reinvesting growth and ensuring that that growth is maintained, that there's public interest in it, and helping to work with developers to fill gaps if there are issues in terms of environmental remediation or old properties, to really activate those spaces that otherwise wouldn't be activated. And we'll give some examples at the end here of some local sites and what has happened and what can happen. So jumping into some of these actual sites, we wanted to start with the project areas that are closed. So as David had mentioned, we've been doing this for a very long time, 1969. And so a lot of these sites have already closed. And just the ones in 2024, you'll see in this little green call-out box, there are 2 sites that closed in 2024. They are now generating $215,000 a year that is going to the general fund, no longer to the RDA, to the general fund. This is new increment that is now no longer being captured. That is just our money as a city to use. And the projects and investments that we made in the earlier years of these areas are now being able to be enjoyed and are capturing that full amount. Some of the other ones that have closed a little bit sooner but are kind of big call outs that we wanted to mention is going to be the Defense Depot Ogden, which is now generating more than $1 million in annual revenue to Ogden's general fund. And then also the West 12th RDA, which is generating 231, right? So some of these can be quite large and significant investments that are continuing to pay dividends for our citizens and for our city. These are our current project areas. And you'll see that even the ones that are still active, that there's a lot of new value being created. CBD Mall, $93 million. And the last increment that was created was almost $120,000, right? That will be coming in once that project area closes, but it still has several years left. And so there's still more increment and value appreciation that can happen as investments are made in that area. And then Adams, which I know that the council just extended last year and increased the budget for, that one is currently $106 million in new value created because of the area, and then $132,000 estimated future return if we were to close it off today.
Chair, can I interrupt with a question?
Absolutely.
Eric, thank you for that. When you said, you mentioned a budget, so is there a ceiling beyond which, regardless of the expiration date, an RDA might cease? So if I recall correctly, when the Adams district, there was a certain dollar amount that we were going to work to collect, and that was beyond it, we weren't going to go.
Correct.
And that could happen before its official expiration date?
Yeah, when a redevelopment area is created, then there will be a budget. Like, this is our ceiling for how much increment we will collect, and that's what we can play with. And any value created above that can't be utilized as part of TIF. And so that is why the request was made last year to increase that amount.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. David, anything I missed with that? Okay, he says no. Good. I'll continue on here. So here's the budget, and there was a presentation made last year, so this slide might look familiar to some of you. But just I'll call out those bottom summation values there, the aggregates. You'll see that there has been a significant decrease from 6.9 to 6.3 between 25 and 26, and the reason for that is the closing out of those two areas. And so that, again, is property tax that's still being collected, but now it's going to the general fund rather than to the RDA. We do have some proposed project areas that are in the pipeline, so I just wanted to make you aware of these, and we're excited about the potential of some of these. The first is the airport CRA expansion. So the airport already has a CRA designated, but we want to expand that out and allow for additional investment and development near the airport site. The city's working to acquire property and annex, or sorry, not the city's acquiring the property. There's a private developer who's acquiring it. And then we're looking to annex that. And so that would be a significant area for us because it's right next to the airport, a lot of commercial opportunity. Next is 5 Points in that intersection. That's one that I think has been mentioned previously. Union Station, HTRZ, that is a state program that allows us to do TIF collection near high transportation nodes. So that's one that really is going to unlock a lot of the Union Station investment, and that's really the intent behind creating that zone. Capitol Square, that is really close here on 26 and Adams. That way, sorry, thank you. and then 24th Street interchange. There is the addition of those northbound lanes and entry points that are coming in. And so that's going to become a potential opportunity for a lot of development and investment. And so being able to provide some resources there is what we're looking for. And then East Washington, so looking at the east side of the temple and a little bit north of that, and some of that land that is yet to be developed, and then some of those older homes that are subpar and need some love and some redevelopment. So some of the internal efficiencies and changes that we're making. One of the things that we are really pushing is trying to speed up the annual update process. I know that we get the numbers from the county in March, May timeframe, and so we wanted to make it much faster, because in the history it's been kind of November that we would finally provide that update to you. But I have a background in data and doing ETL, exchange, transfer, and load of data. And so I've created a query here that can pull the raw data from the county and give it to us pretty much immediately. Like, it takes 30 seconds for the computer to chug it, but we should be able to provide those updates to you in a much faster clip. And then the other thing I'll show you next is our dashboard. And so that's already happened, right, because of my background, and David had mentioned that. But that's something that we wanted to make sure was available to all of you, is that once we get those new numbers from the county of what increments available and what's been collected, that we can put that up much faster and be a much faster turnaround on that. This is something that, because of that ETL, I was able to pull this chart in using Power Pivot in Excel and using those tools. What you'll see is that orange bar is the base tax value, and this is the aggregate of all of the RDAs. So in some cases, we had some fallout in 2022, so that's why you'll see that orange bar go down slightly. The blue bar is the one that is the current tax value. So that's going to be with the RDA, with those investments, all of that participation, you'll see that. And then the 4% is that dotted line, and that's your typical property appreciation rate of 4%. And so this isn't a scientific approach, but it is, I think, a pretty clear example of what those investments can do compared to if we just let them sit in the market. And that's assuming that they didn't have any issues, right? That they were just typical Ogden City property, just appreciating at that normal 4%. But we know that a lot of those are not the case, right? They have environmental issues. They used to be a car wash or a laundromat or something that has maybe some concerns. We find a buried tank somewhere, and those require additional investment and work on them. And without the participation of the RDA, they might not work for a developer, and they might just sit vacant, or in the case of those older properties, the buildings might continue to deteriorate. All right, so if I can get you to do the magic here, if that's on me, I don't know. Up and left. Keep going. Do another 2 more. Perfect. Oh, I can do it, I think. All right, are we seeing it? Perfect. Yeah, good.
I can bring this over.
All right, appreciate your patience as we have the text switch there. So this, I think we have shown you some screenshots, but this is live, and it's ready to be published. So this will be up on the City Council and the Business Development pages very soon. But this is an open and public link. So this is all public information and publicly accessible. That's the intent behind this dashboard. This is going to replace the annual static report that you guys have gotten typically in I believe, November was the time frame. So this should be updated by June, right? So again, we're looking at that efficiencies, trying to get those numbers churned a lot faster. But it's also a much better experience. It used to just, if you wouldn't know where the site was, you wouldn't know what the numbers were and how to navigate all that. But now all of this information is available to all of you as well as to your constituents. So if you have questions about RDA, you can point them to this, and it's a really great, user-friendly, clean, nice interface for them to interact with, rather than having to dig through a report and hope that they can understand what's needed. I won't walk through all of the text here. That's a lot of what we just talked about in our slide, but this is kind of the miracle here, is that you can go to any of the sites and you can either navigate through this menu here on the left, or you can click into any of these sites and it'll dig down and it'll give you an example of what that looks like. And this is intended to be something that we can and will update regularly. So if there's new investments, if there's a new project that gets brought online, a new delivery in the market, then we will update this as well as these underlying values here, the numbers here. And then we have a quick description of what the history is of that site, why it was created, why the RDA was created, and then how those tax increment funds are being used. So looking for transparency, for openness, and for more recency of data. That's really our intent here. And you can jump into any of the RDAs, EDAs, CRAs that we have. I won't walk through all the acronyms and what they mean, but they're essentially the same functions for you. And so it should be a really great experience for all of your constituents and for each of you if you are trying to explore and learn more about these sites. And then we did add the RDA board schedule and the agenda and a link to it there. So if you get additional people coming into the meeting then tonight, then that's probably our fault and part of this. Okay, so let me jump back now into the rest of the presentation. Any questions on that before I hop off of it?
So that will become live in June, you think, is what you're saying? Or it's
I can flip the switch anytime.
at any time? Okay.
Yeah, it is
No.
live. Like if I gave you this link, then you could open it
That
and you
would,
could go to
that's
it.
a live. Okay. No, I think that's awesome. I appreciate that. I know that, things take time, and I just hear voices of former council members asking for this very thing. So I just love to see that it's here and available, and it's just such a great thing for the community who's interested in what's going on with the development side of Ogden to have that information at their fingertips, and for us as well to be able to make decisions. It's nice to, have that live data and not have to wait. It's great. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Is there any reason you wouldn't make that live tomorrow?
I just need to figure out who's going to own the link. So that's really it. Just
fabulous.
more a random city admin.
You're going to wrestle
question.
with David and figure that out, huh?
Not David. It's a higher question than David. But
Okay.
Chair?
Chair, Board Member Myers.
So help me walk through this a little bit. You showed the track line RDA area there. And so the RDA owns that property, and then technically they sell that to the developer with some agreements to help with redeveloping on that property. So then the developer actually becomes the owner of the property at that point. Is that correct?
Yeah, it depends on exactly what that negotiation was, but the typical thing is a land transfer and development agreement. And that's where we tell the developer, here are our expectations and here's what you need to do. So you have to close on the property at this time. You have to get the build permits and the licenses issued. If you're going to be subleasing it, then here's what we expect of those leases and tenant improvements. All of that fun negotiation and detail for the development. And in exchange for meeting those obligations, that allows them to capture the tax increment. So they're essentially paying the property tax that they would normally pay, and then they can recuperate some of those costs each year out of the RDA budget.
And the reason why that shows up in the color that it's the RDA property right there, like the track line property was you paused there for a little bit.
Well, it's still in that RDA area, and so that is a designated area that will maintain for the life of the RDA.
And so that's why that it stays in that color, because that still is part of the RDA area and the tax increment funding.
The tax is still being captured, and the county actually gets the tax, right? You pay your property taxes to the county, and then they distribute it to the city.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay.
All right. Well, I'll hand it off to David because he has a little bit better history with some of these projects that he's going to show. So thank you all.
Thank you, Eric.
To lower the microphone. Thanks, Eric. Just a follow up on that last discussion too. In the track line, we started off owning all those parcels. The RDA had purchased that land. We now only own, I think, one remaining parcel, and that's where the exchange building resides. And we're hoping to come back to you guys in the next month or so with some information about a potential project there to restore that building and turn it over to private ownership and that will then come on the tax rolls. It's for years, it's not been on the tax rolls, right? Because we've owned it. So that's our objective is to get all that in private hands as much as possible ultimately. But all those parcels in that track line development, except for that last one, are now in private hands.
And that is a beautiful development. To drive through there to see what it has become as compared to what it used to be is amazing. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, great job.
You did raise a question in my mind. So since the city has owned it and it hasn't been generating any taxes, where does the baseline end up when it does change hands to a developer? Does the baseline go to what it would have been had it been privately owned? Or does it start at zero?
In that case, it started at zero. Yeah.
Okay, just checking.
Yep.
Thank you.
And so it's really been pretty cool. Over the last couple of years, we've seen, we had the Enable Utah building, right, a few years back. Then there's been, last year, there was a brand new commercial building that was built and is now occupied. Beehive Mills came online and bought that building, the next building in, and that'll come on to the tax rolls next year. So there's always a little bit of a delay, right? And so the dramatic increase in increment is being, the track line has looked a little sad in terms of the return over the last few years, because until those new buildings came on board, and those are all private built buildings that are generating significant income or increment taxes. So that's just one example. Let's see. Oh, and so I shared some of this with you guys the other night, but some of our major agency activities include, of course, Wonder Block, and a lot of stuff is going on there, and a lot's happening. As I mentioned previously, in case anybody, you see in front there, the public parking sign, that is open now. If you haven't taken a drive up in there, you should check it out. It is super nice. And so, it kind of makes you want to just go in there every once in a while, and if there's any little oil drips or anything, clean it up, because it's pristine, right? And we actually, just as a side note, when I say we, the city, I mean this is our baby, and so our public services group has spent a lot spent a lot of time on making sure this is built properly and built well, and even some additional thoughtfulness in terms of the floor covering in there. And the first floor in particular has a very resilient coating on it because of all you're tracking in the outside, the salt on the roads and so forth. And then also the upper floor, which is exposed to the elements, also has a special heavy duty coating on. And then in the middle, it's a normal coating, but a coating nonetheless. And so we expect this to last for generations. And so we're going to take care of it and watch over it. So we're pretty proud of that. But public parking is available there now. Let's see, I'm pushing the wrong button. There we go.
Get the 40 and younger guy to come help you with that.
Yeah, I know, right? Just to give you an idea, we have that discussion about every other day. Eric will come in my office and he'll look at my computer screen and he's like, "Why are you doing it that way?" And he's like, "Let me show you something." And so anyway, but yeah, he's funny. But so yeah, he's teaching me stuff. I can still learn new tricks. So but yeah. All right, so this is Wonder Block, of course, the other side, looking at 26 and Lincoln. And this sign went up yesterday, and so, or today, I'm not sure, but we got the picture this afternoon. And so that's right there on the corner of what will be the market rate housing up on the upper floors. Today we met with the developer and the brokers, and we're talking about some of the opportunities we have and some of the negotiations that are going on to lease space in the commercial, the office areas in particular. There's a lot of interest there. that's looking very positive, as well as the on-floor retail. So there's a whole bunch of activity going on there and more to come. And so we're hoping also the hotel, which will face on the north side, 25th Street, to be in a position to announce that in the next few weeks. And so what that will be. And so a lot of momentum there, excitement, and we'll continue to provide updates on that, and you guys will see it with your eyes as well as it goes up. A little more on in the beginning stage. Last year, as we mentioned, the Adams CRA, which we've had really good success in, and we increased the budget for that and the term, and that enabled this new project to come online. And this is a new housing project in the 2600 block of Adams Avenue, and that part of town is a little sad in some ways. And what you see in the distance there is a big asphalt parking lot and not much else going on back there. And so it's kind of an empty side of the block. And so what we presented to the RDA board last, I think it was in April or May, the Malachite housing project, and we just saw the building permit come through for that last week, or is actually the 28th of January, I think, and showing a $20 million project. And so that will be an incremental project for this Adams CRA, and the tax generation that will generate, in addition to very nice housing, will complement and provide some investment and love into the Adams CRA. And then right around the corner, that old commercial building will get some attention as well, and renovation as part of that combined project area. So we're excited about that. I just put this on here to remind me to talk about one of the points that you saw in our redevelopment, the reasons we exist, is to address issues like this. And we've been working on this as an RDA, and there's been funds spent out of the RDA budget on this site, because there was, years ago, there was a number of uses that actually put contaminants into the soil. And so we've been working on cleaning that up, and we have a project and a case open with the Department of Environmental Quality now, where they're doing monitoring, and it's looking very good that within the next year or so, we'll be able to build on this site. And so we're excited about that, but it has come at a cost. And the cost has also been that every developer that's looked at this site over the last number of years has moved on, because it's the cost of doing that was too great for that to look good to them. So we're excited about, we're working with one developer now that's interested in this. It's probably, like I said, another year out. And this would also be potentially in the Union Station HTRZ zone, because it'll be so close to the this will be a residential project, so close to the front runner train station at Union Station. So we're excited about that. And then the airport CRA is helping us with a lot of the upcoming future infrastructure improvements at the airport. This particular improvement that we see at the terminal, that in large part was paid for by our FAA funds, which we were grateful for because of our commercial service, but other needs are there at the airport as well. And so the airport CRA will be helping us with a lot of those future projects and infrastructure improvements and replacing a lot of the very old infrastructure at our Ogden Airport. And then we mentioned the Union Station neighborhood, or the campus. Not only does that include the Union Station itself, and with our objective of bringing back the front runner and making Union Station a transit hub or a multimodal transportation hub, all different types of transportation, but also the opportunity for private development to the north and south. We're very excited about that. This is one of the concept renderings that was shown at the public engagement meeting 2 weeks ago at Union Station. Here's another one. This is the view along Wall Avenue looking north towards Ben Lomond. where we see expect UTA buses to be lining up along Wall Avenue. You see also the enhanced landscaping along Wall. We call that traffic calming type of improvements along Wall Avenue, the hotel to the left, and so on. And then some green space. We mentioned that as one of our values in RDA, the idea of not only just building stuff, but building nice placemaking for our community to make it a nicer place to live. And so that's also incorporated into the concepts. And so this is impossible to read, but if anyone is interested in the latest rendition of the master plan, which we're really dialing in now, and over the next few months we'll be finishing that up and starting to prepare what that looks like for our HTRZ application to the state of Utah. But if any of you are interested in looking at that, we have our website, which is unionstation-ogden.com. So unionstation-ogden.com. Ogden.com, you'll see the whole project information is there, including this drawing, and as well as the renderings and the history of all the public feedback and the input that we've received over really the last I would say we've been working on this for about 3 years. And before that, the Make Ogden plan, which was adopted by the City Council and the RDA Board in 2020. So we're excited about these projects and many others, which we haven't gone into, but this just gives you a little bit of a taste of some of the activities that we're working on at this time. Okay?
Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Question on this redevelopment, especially along Wall Avenue. There's been a debate over parking on Wall Avenue.
Yeah.
Has there been a decision made yet, or is that something you make in consultation with, is it UDOT that?
Yes, UDOT. We have, over the last year and a half, we've been working on a traffic study and a Wall Avenue study. UDOT is actually paying for half of that. And so, but it's a joint project with Ogden City and UDOT. And it not only includes this area right downtown, but it basically the whole length of Wall Avenue in Ogden City. And so all of that's being looked at in terms of where are we deficient in terms of curb and gutter, sidewalks. You guys can all picture where I'm thinking about up there on the Walmart area and so on. And 12th Street. And so, but in then bringing it back downtown, the enhanced landscaping and traffic calming measures, enhanced pedestrian crossways. We don't have agreement on what all that looks like yet, but we've gotten a lot of public feedback, and we've submitted proposals to UDOT. And so we're working on figuring out what that's ultimately going to look like. But part of that also includes the on-street parking. I'm not sure that's going to work so well. And so particularly is if we want to queue up buses on in front of Union Station, things like that. So all those logistics still need to be worked out. But a lot of different ideas have been presented. A lot of ideas that won't work have been presented, and we've talked through some of those. There's been some excellent public feedback, and one of our most positive, I think, and the one that probably one of our citizens that gives us the most pause sometimes is sitting right here to my right on the front row. And so she always, she's the one that always shows up at these public engagement events and asks the very smart and very, I hadn't thought about that question. She's on it. So we appreciate Laura and her contributions in that regard. But anyway, we don't know the answer to that yet, council member, but we're working on that.
My just feedback on that is I understand right in front of the Union Station, parking would be impossible.
Yeah.
But I do want to be a proponent for parking for businesses.
Yep.
Because I think businesses like to have that opportunity where people can just pull right up in front of their business to park and not a long ways away. Even though it just serves a limited few people, it's still nice to have parking.
I hear you.
Even though it's scary for people, I just need to be careful when they get out of the car and not open the door when there's traffic coming. So sorry, but
nope. And our number one goal from the city's perspective, I think, is, and from what we heard from the public, is to connect. And connect Union Station neighborhood, Union Station, and the transportation hub that it will become to the rest of downtown. We want it to all be connected, easy pedestrian access, easy visibility. We want the businesses that are curated there to complement what is downtown and to make downtown Ogden more of a draw than it already is, and really serve as you've heard the mayor say a number of times, the downtown for northern Utah. And so Union Station will add to the attractiveness of downtown, and Wall Avenue is, and making that connectivity happen. So when people get out the front runner, walk out the front doors of Union Station and look at 25th Street, there's an easy way to get there, not a highway. And so that's one of the hurdles that we're working on. That's the objective, is to make it feel like it's connected. The downtown is one. Okay. All right. I'll turn the time back over to Eric.
Yeah, so just what you can expect in the very near term is that we are putting together some revised proposed mission, focus, policies, and procedures documents for the RDA. And that's really was requested from all of you to go through that effort. And so we've been doing that for the last several months and are excited to show our proposals there. So you can expect that in the very near term. Okay, any other questions or discussion while I'm up here?
Any more questions for Eric?
Yeah, I had one. I'm going to stumble a little bit. I think this was one of the values that was put forth was values and focus, safer streets and transportation choices to improve everyone's life in Ogden. And you mentioned buses and trains and cars, but specifically, I wanted to ask about active transportation. Is pedestrian walkability and bicycle-friendly infrastructure also part of that overall mission around transportation?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I did mention trails, but you're right. Like, you also have sidewalks and safe streets and especially biking infrastructure.
Okay. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah.
It does show on that layout that the trail kind of back on the backside, right? Is that what it?
That's absolutely true for the Union Station, but I think as a general principle, I failed to mention bike, and that is absolutely correct.
Okay.
And I'm glad that you asked that, because that's certainly one of the multimodal aspects that we focus in on.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion regarding this?
Thank you again.
you.
It's a pleasure to meet all of you, and I'll stick
Nice
around
to
if
meet
any of
you.
you want to talk to me in
Look
person.
forward to seeing you over and over again.
Absolutely.
All right. So if there's no discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I will make that motion to accept basically just accept the report for the 2024-2025 fiscal year RDA.
Second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Board Member Ritchie, seconded by Vice Chair Graff to accept the report. And this is a voice vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, great. Next item on our agenda is public comment. This is an opportunity to address the board regarding concerns or ideas on any issue or topic. So if you would please come to the microphone, give us your name for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Frankie Ortega. I own Moore's Barbershop. I feel like the barbershop's kind of like this, just, more lackadaisical. But I hear a lot what's going on in the community, and I just wanted to come and first, sorry for the way we're dressed. I just coached my son's baseball.
You're fine.
So, but
Not an issue.
thank you so much. I know a lot about you, and I voted for you guys, and I think you're doing a great job. I just have something I wrote kind of from the what I've been hearing in the community, and I just thought that it'd benefit you guys. So, I come before you today not with condemnation, but with a sobering warning, a warning to the leaders of the city. We are witnessing an increase in chaos, division, and lawlessness. And these things do not emerge in a vacuum. They begin at the top. When leadership is divided, the people beneath it suffer. Just last week, in a moment that demanded wisdom and steadiness, we watched our leaders stand divided instead of united, even as confusion and unrest filled the room. A city cannot be built on division. Every time we attempt to grow without unity, it is as if we are rebuilding on scorched ground. We all seen the consequences around us, from arson of the buildings that we're trying to grow, our youth filled with outrage and despair, walking out of schools, crying out against social unrest and gun violence, which resulted in a young man's life. God bless his soul. Even the land itself reflects disorder. We have endured a winter without snow, drought upon the ground, and instability. Scripture tells us that when order is broken, creation groans. Today I warn you both, urgent and hope. A city divided will fall if we do not turn back to being one nation under God. If we continue to remove him from our decisions, our policies, and our leadership, we will continue to reap division. Yet I believe this: God is merciful, and the grace is still available. But repentance must come first. If we humble ourselves and turn back to him, he will heal our land. I love you guys, and I voted for you. And I just want unity and peace and prosperity. And I support every single one of you. And I applaud you for everything that you do. God bless you all.
Thank you, Mr. Ortega. Appreciate that comment. Who's next?
Linda Sanchez. I just want to tell you about a story that from the people that came. It was part of the Plymouth colony. They came, and 5 kernels of corn is what they survived on. They suffered so that we could have a lot of prosperity. And we think about ourselves, and I just think 5 kernels of corn. How did they do that? How in the world did they do that? And how did they not fight amongst themselves like we see today? And it was because they kept God in their life, and they prayed, and they actually, that was a time where they didn't have any rain, and it rained. And with that being said, over this last week, it just reminds me of a quote. And I know I've quoted this before, but it just rings really true, because you guys are going to face tough challenges. And I just want to repeat this quote. Tough times create strong men and women. Strong men and women create easy times. Easy times create weak men and women. Weak men and women create tough times. So as you guys are up there deciding things, what I started to say last week is, when we start to think about the policies and procedures or the things that we're doing, if we could come to a constitution, I don't know if you use technology with AI or whatever, because I know that we're all not constitutional scholars. But if you bring your bills or whatever you're doing and you have a sieve, put it through the tests to even see if it needs to come to you. One, does it meet the U.S. Constitution? Does it pass the state constitution? And then the third thing, is it the best for both sides of our community? Because there are sides, right? Is it the best? With that being said, what I personally would like to see is actually revisiting some of the policies or codes that we have in order. I was looking up some of the codes, and we have that we cannot, we can't strap a horse to any any structure in the building. And I'm not quite sure how that is in place today. I haven't necessarily seen any horses downtown. But that's maybe something that we could look at. Also, there is one that I was surprised about with the homeless. They can be criminally charged if they have 2 items. That would be a hammock
Thank you,
or a
Linda.
pillow or a blanket. Just think about that. Should we criminalize them?
Thanks, Linda.
Thank you.
Who's next?
Hello, Emily Fox. Councilman Lindell mentioned last week how we are in unprecedented times, and the turnout was a result of that. And my continued attendance is also a result of that. 2 weekends ago, I did attend my first protest. I have never done that, and I made my first protest poster, and I put a very wordy quote on it, but I'm going to read it for you here. "This," cried the mayor, "is your town's darkest hour, the time for all who have blood that is red to come to the aid of their country," he said. "We've got to make noises in greater amounts, so open your mouth, lad, for every voice counts." That is a quote from Horton Hears a Who, and the mayor is rallying his constituents because their whole world is about to be boiled in hazelnut oil, and they all need to speak up in order to be heard and to save themselves. And I feel we are at a point in this country where hazelnut oil is coming in the form of our constitutional rights being violated by our own government against its own citizens. And it's upsetting. And I don't know how much I can do, but I do have time and I do have a voice, as meek as it might be sometimes. So I will continue to show up and voice my concerns and voice my support for a resolution. I did appreciate last week hearing the objections and why there are objections, and I think they are very valid, and I do hope that we can find a balance with that. But I also feel it is important as cities and as state governments to stand strong against the values that I think we all agree on make this country great, and we need to stand up and speak out against the violation of that. Thank you for all you do.
Thanks, Emily. Who's next?
I have 2 questions regarding the RHA.
Your name first.
Oh, right. Thanks. Thor Dorosh. I live in Ogden, up by McCady Hospital in Dave Graff's district. I have 2 questions for the RHA thing. Specifically, how is it not a subsidy to give money to a developer? I understand it's to incentivize them to build in a certain area, but fundamentally any money being given to a developer I feel is a subsidy, even if it's leading them to build something which they would not otherwise build. I just want to have that be clarified. And then so if you have a amount of property tax and anything more than that becomes a part of the TIF, is that connected to the interest rate, or does that, if the TIF is active for 40 years, does that mean that the actual amount of money decreases because interest rates increase? So are we getting less money to the school district that way? Because it's just not well, I guess it's separate parts of the bills, but does the city get less money that way? Are we getting less money because of the interest rates? And then part of strong towns is that we don't like money going into places without us knowing how we're going to get it back. So we're concerned speaking for Strong Towns about TIFs because we feel it's an unsafe investment. We don't know if there will be a property tax increase to be able to pay that back. We know that Wonder Block and the Union Station and all these other projects are very likely to increase property taxes, and that very likely means that we'll be able to pay that back. But we prefer stable and secure ways of getting that income to be able to pay for these projects. Paying for it with like paid parking, or we knowing we can pay with it with property taxes elsewhere, something like that. TIFs are fantastic, but there is that concern that we will, when we develop Wonder Block and then we develop Union Station, and eventually I'm assuming we're going to move on to Electric Alley, the important property taxes of downtown will be all in TIFs. So we'll be relying upon the much more unstable and much less profitable property taxes of the suburbia. And suburbia has a lot of infrastructure needs that they need to spend on themselves. So like we might have, I'm just concerned about the long-term tax longevity of the city. Thank you.
Thanks, Thor. Okay, I'm not seeing any more movement. Oh, guess we got one. Okay.
Good evening, Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. For the RDA portion of this meeting, I have 4 words for you. Joan Massey and Toby Rittner. Joan Massey is the Executive Vice President, MBA, PhD, Harvard, who runs the Memphis EDGE program, which is one of the leading economic development engines run by a city in the entire nation. And Toby Rittner is the president of the CDFA. He is the literal expert that puts together the programs for people to be certified as economic developers. Both of them, I have their cell numbers. They are willing to talk to people for the newly elected board members / councils. I highly recommend that you reach out because they are willing to talk. And just because this is the way we've always done it doesn't necessarily mean it's the best. And I am, for the record, absolutely not anti-development. I'm anti-bad deals for Ogden. And as one of the people said, the whole risk factor, I mean, we're kind of bonded to the teeth. If something really happened terribly, we would have a hard time digging ourselves out of that without state or federal funding. I also echo some of the concerns for the community with regards to a resolution. I am in support of it. I am so pleased and grateful for sending an email to inquire about an article I saw and having it discussed and openly and acted upon. So I thank you for that expediency and the concern. And, you know, I trust that nobody thinks that I don't think that there's anything nefarious happening here in Ogden, but we just want to make sure because as the article points out, so did the other state think that everything was fine, but it wasn't. Regarding what's happening with the national ICE movement, people shouldn't have to show their papers to prove their right to exist to max men who refuse to obey the rule of law. There are countless lawsuits right now, and I understand that a lot of people don't want to draw attention to us, and I've got news for you. It's happening nationwide. That's not going to change anything. And I believe that comes from a position of fear, and that's what I don't want from my leaders. I want my leaders to not do survival math, and survival math is what do I do to keep my family safe, and it keeps changing, and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and what looks like compliance ends up becoming walls closed in. So I encourage you to continue to discuss it and to really be open with the community about it. And I am grateful that you are in a place where we're talking about it and we're going back and forth on it. Thank you.
Thanks, Angel. We have two online hands now. We got Heath Sato.
Oh, that's where she went. Heath Sato, Ogden resident. I first wanted to say I was only able to make the meeting a little bit late, so I caught the tail end of it. But the website RDA thing that's being done, I'm excited to see some progress in creating a more open setup for all of that. For a long time, it's been really hard for people to understand and really see what's going on. And the more transparency and the more information we have on that, the better. I do have, I'll send it out in an email, an updated, the typical TIF graph is shown as a triangle, and that's not quite accurate. And I have a graph that's a little more accurate representation that helps you think about it a little bit more. And that's really what I wanted to say tonight, and that I just I wanted to thank you guys for working on the RDA thing. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Heath. We have Teresa's iPhone.
Hi, good evening. This is Teresa Bramwell. I wanted to say that I really agree with the first speaker, the gentleman that owns the barbershop. I liked what he had to say, and I agree with it. And I would say that my opinion of Ogden is that at least my neighborhood is in utter chaos. In the past 15 years, we've lost most of the functional businesses on 25th and Monroe. We lost IGA, Rite Aid, all of the surrounding small businesses in that block between 24th and 25th on Monroe. We lost Stimson's on the corner of 26th and Monroe, Arctic Circle. Basically, it's unrecognizable. And the property owners who have lived through this are absolutely terrified because we don't know, if we're going to be next to go bankrupt. The crime has been totally out of control during the Biden administration, especially. It did get better in 2025, and it has been better in 2026. There has not been as much crime, not as much homelessness of people on the streets, trespassing, vagrancy, public drunkenness, graffiti, those types of things, breaking and entering, theft. Those have all been rampant in my neighborhood. And I am excited to hear that there are plans for Capitol Square, which is the block I just discussed. But I'm also a little bit terrified about it because what we're doing is we've taken those properties away from the long-term owners that owned them and had functional businesses where they made a profit and they were fully invested and they had skin in the game. And we're giving that entire block now, it seems, to some giant developer who's just going to turn Ogden into a city of tenants. I don't know how wise that is. I am not the expert on how much better tenants treat a city than owners, but my opinion is that we need a lot more owners and we need a lot more people with skin in the game, and those people need to not be living in chaos. They need to, believe that the rules that they're required to live under are the same rules that the guy next to them is required to live under. And that has not been the way it has been in Ogden. So I hope that changes. Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. I think that's all the hands online. Is there anyone else? I think everybody's actually spoken that came. So, appreciate the comments that you've all come to give. Let's take a minute and see if we can answer some of these questions. I kind of wanted to take a stab at Thor's question about how is it not a subsidy, and I think that there's probably better people to do this than me, but let me give it a stab, okay, Thor? You and I have a little bit of a relationship, so the Exchange building out there in the Trackline project, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's pretty tired, and a developer is not going to say, I see some profit there, so I'm going to buy that up and develop it and fix it and make it nice. And they're not going to do that because there won't be any profit in that for them. So a private developer, won't ever do it without some kind of an incentive. And so we don't call them subsidies, because there is some things that have to be done that in order to make that pencil for a developer or someone that's going to develop that project. And so that's what that TIF does, is it bridges the gap between what it takes to make it work and what it is. Now I'm kind of eager to see Heath's new graph. I mean, we've seen this graph for a long time, and it kind of works for me. But if he's got a better one, I'm eager to see it. So so it doesn't actually go to profit the developer, but it goes to bridge the gap to make the project actually a functional one. And we've done lots of those in the city because our city is getting pretty old. Our infrastructure's old. Our buildings are getting kind of old. And so we've used this RDA, CRA, whatever it's called this decade, to use tax increment to fund these things. And the list that was on there, and the old list of ones that have developed and matured and gone away, you can go back and look at those and say, that would not have been there without TIF. It would have still been the old dead project that was there when it started, generating the same taxes for the citizens as it did then. And that's why the TIF is so critical for a city like Ogden that has aging infrastructure and aging buildings and things to make it work, or we would absolutely die. So hopefully that helps you understand. That's the big picture. I will certainly let somebody else try and fill in the dashes for some of that.
I think one of the answers is right here on the slide, where it says it's not a subsidy for a project that could move forward without public support. So it is a subsidy. Okay, I see. It's just not a subsidy for a project that would move forward without the subsidy being there.
His head was blocking it. With that specific quote. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Great. Okay. Anybody else want to try to answer
there's
some of
just
these?
another business axiom that I grew up with in building my own business, and it's you got to spend money to make money. And if you're going to open a storefront downtown, you've got to invest in a sign. You need to spend money before you ever see your cash register ring with $1 in it. You've got to develop a marketing plan, and you've got to spend some money in advertising. And rather than subsidy, I kind of like the terminology of partnership. You're gonna join hands with this group, and they're gonna help you bail out of a dead piece of property, and you're both gonna enjoy the opportunity to make a profit in developing something, and the city's gonna profit in incremental tax revenue that otherwise wouldn't be generated.
And you talked about the school. These other entities, these other jurisdictions that participate in this RDA, how it's costing them. Well, it really isn't costing them, because without that incentive or that subsidy, it will continue to generate whatever it's generating, which is hardly anything until, and so it's not taking any money away from those districts, the school district and whatever. But it does give them a whole lot more back once the RDA is complete and once it expires. So it just makes it work. Okay.
Can I just add another thought to that? The school districts they have to agree to the TIF. I mean, they pass their own resolution to participate or to be okay. And I like the idea that, the participation rate maybe 85%, so they can start to see some increasement, and that seems to be more normal. The other thing is if the private market's going to develop it, we ought to step out of the way and let the private market develop it. No question in my mind. I think that's we should allow that to happen and shouldn't stand in their way. But just for example, like the 5 Point area in Ogden, we've got some apartments going up where the Wayne's Guards used to be, and there are or even let's say 12th Street and 12th and Wall, where the Fred Meyer lot is. If things aren't happening there, and if we look historically in the city, there have been areas that have just sat and nothing has happened, and private markets have had the opportunity to do something, but they just haven't for whatever reason. And so I'm excited that we're talking about an RDA or a TIF area, an RDA for 5 Points. I mean, that's phenomenal. That's an area that definitely needs some economic development. And if it takes a little shot in the arm from the city to help get something moving along, that will be better for the city. And so, but I also agree that if the private market's going to develop that, we ought to step out of the way and let that happen, because that's better. But if we have property owners that aren't doing anything because they don't know what to do or they can't pencil, right? Mm-hmm. Then that's where I think this tool comes together. It's not a fix-all for everything, but it does play a role.
But I gotta mention too, though, that even though it might be a shot in the arm from the city, it is not taxpayer funds. It doesn't add to the tax burden of the people. Okay. All right. Did we get them all? Did you guys want to weigh in on any of these? That we have smart people that could maybe answer some of this stuff. So.
See, Teresa mentioned the Capitol Square project, and that's still fluid. There's final decisions have been made there on what that looks like, and that will ultimately come back to you guys before we do anything there in terms of the concepts and what agreements are entered into. It probably won't be just one developer for the whole thing, and it'll be mixed uses, and some commercial is what we're really have envisioned for that, and so including a food store. And so the reason that one is dragging along is a good example of why the RDA is even involved, and that is because of the cleanup of the land. And so there's some hazardous issues there that we've been working on for a number of years, and it's looking really good, by the way. And so we're hoping within the next 6 months to a year, we'll actually be able to start building something there. But the design is still in flux, and so that's still pretty fluid, and we're excited about the opportunity there to do something really nice that, by the way, will include for purchase residential units. That's one of the things that we're holding out for there, is for purchase residential units, single family, whether it's townhomes or what the product looks like. We haven't defined yet, but that's one of the things that anybody that's talking to us about developing on that block, that will be one of the requirements, that a portion of this needs to be that. So I just wanted to mention that for Capitol Square that Teresa brought up. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is in terms of incentives, if we think about, for example, in some cases for companies that we're either attracting or that we're trying to keep, we're in a competitive environment. And so I bring up the example of Williams International. It's a company that's been here in Ogden for decades, and one of our larger employers. They have just over 1,000 employees out by the airport. Really successful company, and they came to us a year or two ago and just said, we are, once again, because back in 2000 they had a out-of-country facility manufacturer that had burned down, and they said, we have locations in Michigan and in Utah. How fast could you guys help us get up and going? And so we rallied the troops. We approved their plans, and they were able to build a project on their existing property here in Ogden much faster than it looked like they were going to be able to do, and at a lower cost than in Michigan. So that worked really, really well. They came to us again a year and a half ago or so and said, we need another expansion. We're looking at potentially 2 other states, and we're working with their economic development organizations to get offers from those states for incentives, and as well as our headquarters in Michigan. And we're also looking at Utah, of course. What can we do? The problem we have with building in Utah is we don't have enough electricity. And so the capacity from Rocky Mountain Power, we're going to have to build our own generator. We're going to have to do all these different elements. What can we do? And so the cost was substantial here, primarily on the infrastructure. And so through the Adams CRA, we were able to craft a package that would work with Rocky Mountain Power to upgrade our infrastructure, the electrical infrastructure, substantial costs there. But it's not only going to help with the Williams International electric service, but also make our electric service for the whole airport area more robust. But that will be that's a tax increment financing project that we're going to be able to utilize the expansion project that Williams is doing, substantial building and infrastructure, and the capital they're putting into the equipment in their expansion, and which will also employ about 300 people starting next year. All that increment is being captured to do that infrastructure improvement. So in a way, that's an incentive, but it's also benefiting that whole part of town as well. So that's a win-win for us. And finally, I just want to say, in terms of unsafe investments, I think if we were to ever, and we try to be very conservative when we project what a project's going to produce. And we look at the spreadsheets and the financial projections. That's about the only way that a city could get out over its skis in terms of being too optimistic that something was going to be worth this much when it's built, and then therefore will generate this much taxes. So we're going to borrow against that promise, right? And so when we look at the financial projections, we look at what the developer or a company or a real estate company thinks that's going to be valued at, and we just slash that and look at about half of that in terms of what we think it's going to generate. And we try to be very conservative, and that's what the project budgets and the development agreements and what we're planning to provide for our projects, all based upon those conservative estimates. I have seen worst case scenarios, a community, for example, in the Omaha area, that their RDA did just that. They way overestimated the value of a project, and I'm not sure where the numbers came from, but they took the most optimistic view, and that's what we have to stay away from. And I think historically we've always been very conservative, and that's why the performance has always been very positive for each one of our CRA districts and the associated projects. And so we feel that will continue based upon our best practices that we incorporate.
Well, while you're here, Teresa also brought up, Stimson's used to be on 26th and Monroe, Rite Aid, Safeway, all those businesses that were in Capitol Square footprint. Oh, my wife told me to sit closer to the mic too. I should obey, huh? Thank you. I appreciate that. And so, but my recollection, and it's just my memory, which doesn't always serve great, but I think every one of those projects had already collapsed on its own accord before the city ever took it out, did anything with the RDA or the CRA. Isn't that true? And I don't think the Stimsons ever did become a CRA. I think Weber State bought that property and put their campus building on it. Is that accurate?
I actually can't say that I could speak authoritatively about that history, so I would have to look into that and get back to you. But, but I know
I thought we'd try to answer her question best we could. So.
Right. And so right now, the Capitol Square where Rite Aid was, the RDA owns that property. So this is our joint project that we'll be working on together going forward. And we utilized RDA funds once upon a time, years back, to demolish those buildings, level the ground, and prepare it for new development. And that's when we ran into some of the environmental issues that we've been working on the last few years, as well as the other properties, including the previous dry cleaners near where the Q25 project just got built, and was opened last fall. So,
okay, thank you.
Okay, Eric, did you have anything else you wanted to express?
I know that there was a question about interest rates in that collection, and I'm happy to talk with you a little bit more after. But just as a general answer to that, the property taxes collected are attached to interest rates. So you'll have property appreciation, and that'll be the appreciation rate. And that's just your market, your land economics, and your real estate market that's driving those changes. For many of the last several years, it's been very hot. Real estate has been very hot, and prices have appreciated. But in the last couple of years, they've cooled off and have appreciated much more slowly. And so that's where, as David was saying, we try to be very conservative, where we stick to that 3 or 4% appreciation, knowing that it's very likely that the market's going to be hotter than that across the entire business cycle. And we try not to get out of our skis. And I think the other concept of a partnership versus a subsidy is also a very apt one, because if there is no appreciation of that land, then there is no funding available. And so, if you get into the LTDA and then nothing happens on the property, then the developer hasn't received any funds or any income from that. And so you are kind of both participating in that, and if nothing happens on that land, then it would be as if no RDA had occurred in the first place. And so there isn't that inherent risk of, there's just money being transferred right there up front or anything like that in most cases of our RDAs.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That's an issue that all of us have a learning curve on. It's a complicated issue, and we all had to go through some kind of a learning curve on that. So, and some of us are in different places on that learning curve. So, anyway, thank you for all your questions. And Angel, I did want to encourage you to take the information the phone numbers, et cetera, Ogden City or City Council at ogdencity.gov. If you would send that over to us, that would be.
I'll write an introduction.
That'll be great. Thank you. Okay. Any responses from the administration?
No, nothing further than our staff provided. Thank you.
Okay. Council members, any comments? Board members, I guess I should say.
I have one, if that's okay.
Sure.
And it's not really my words. It's just something I came across. And from some of the comments tonight, I really appreciate everyone that came and shared their feelings. And it's particularly in light of everything going on in the world around us. And I saw this week, and John O'Leary, I don't know if anyone knows who this guy is, but he puts out a podcast. And anyway, he shared this, and it hit me when I read it, and I just think it was good for me to hear, and maybe for you too. And if not, that's fine too. I mean, I'll just take a few minutes here to read this, but it's called The Arrogant Man on the Plane. And the reminder I needed about slowing down judgment. Recently, I shared a story online about a flight delay because of the arrogance of one person. Thousands of people liked the post, hundreds more commented, and the vast majority agreed that the man in first class was profoundly arrogant. Here's what I learned after the post went live. It turns out I was the arrogant one. Let me explain. Our flight didn't take off on time because a seat in first class was wobbly. The passenger seated there refused to sit in it, insisted it be fixed, and declined to switch seats with anyone else. When the captain came on the intercom, he sounded baffled, calling it the strangest reason for a delay he'd ever seen. Later, a flight attendant made her way toward those of us seated further back on the plane and explained what was happening in first class. Though she wouldn't identify the passenger involved, to those of us watching from the back, it was obvious. We could see the man standing. We saw him pointing, the back and forth with his wife, the way he looked angrily at others. in the back of the plane. We chatted about his arrogance and didn't just assume what was happening, we knew. During the 90 minutes we waited for maintenance to fix the wobbly seat on the plane with plenty of open seats, I found myself growing in anger. This guy's selfishness, stubbornness, and arrogance is the reason all of us are going to arrive late. The lady behind me will miss a funeral. The gentleman next to me will miss a connection to Hawaii. A young mom who had hoped to put her kids to bed for the first time this week won't have the chance, all because of one man. Eventually we did take off, arriving almost 2 hours late to the airport. We all hustled through the terminal, trying to catch flights that had likely already departed. By chance, I ended up waiting for a train to a different terminal next to of all people, the man's wife. She stood, arms crossed, visibly upset. Fueled by frustration, certainty, and judgment, I said, "You know, an entire plane full of people are missing connecting flights because your husband wouldn't move seats." She uncrossed her arms, looked me in the eyes, and said, "That wasn't us. It was the woman behind us. She refused to move. We're missing our connection too." Oof. In one sentence, she handed me the truth and a mirror. The entire back of the plane had the wrong person, the wrong facts, the wrong story. Even more than that, I was so convinced that I had it right, I had confronted a total stranger with my verdict. On my rerouted flight and the 3-hour drive that followed, I had plenty of time to digest a lesson I didn't enjoy but needed to receive. I can be so arrogant. How often do I take a snapshot and call it the whole story, hear a fragment and pronounce judgment, assign blame without knowing the facts? My friends, there's a lot of tension in the world right now. We are surrounded by hot takes and headlines and certainty. We observe, we assume, and we grow confident, sometimes to the point of arrogance, in what we think we know. What would happen if we paused before we judged, listened before we reacted, extended grace before we condemned? Today, let's choose curiosity over judgment, grace over frustration, and understanding over winning. I needed that reminder a couple of weeks ago. Maybe you need it today. It's a lesson that may not change the world, but maybe it can change yours. And maybe that's where the real work begins. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Board Member Ritchie. Anyone else?
We adjourn.
I've got one first. You know, last week was somewhat unprecedented. I think those of us who were here probably acknowledge that. And you know, as I often do, as I digest what happened and I think things through, I wish I'd have said something that I did not say. And it is, I think, something that kind of goes off what Board Member Ritchie said. I think we're much better off if we extend a hand rather than a fist. So we will disagree on things, all of us, from time to time. But we always come to a better resolution if we come with that open hand and a willingness to listen and to work from a place of common ground, which I strongly believe that we all have a lot more in common than the thing that divides us. So that's what I kind of wish I'd have said last week, and I hope we can do that going forward. So certainly everybody is entitled to what they what they want to say, their opinion. I'm a huge supporter of free speech amendments, or the free speech, the First Amendment of free speech. But I think we should take a high road when we're trying to look for the best way for our city to go forward. So now I'll accept that motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Well, Councilmember Myers was or Board Member Myers, and I'm going to give Board Member Lindell the second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. In the opinion of the chair, that was unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
What happened over there at that property? Safeway had that in the late 70s or early 80s.